it's a sort of, I don't do many like war stories, but there's this one that I've just really loved, and it's a story of, he was a general then, but became Lord Baden-Powell, who was the founder of the Scout movement. The sort of scouting became about because of him, and because of his war efforts against the Boer army, the Dutch armies in Africa. We're going back to 1899, and he was called to the Houses of Parliament in London, and they said they wanted to send him on a mission. Now, there'd already been a Boer War, and they didn't want to risk having a second Boer War, so they didn't want to send great big armies over. So they said they were just going to send him with a dozen officers, and he'd have to sort an army when he got there. So he sat there with them, and they said, you know, how are we getting there? And they said, well, we've got a naval vessel ready to take you. And he said, well, no, if we want to be low key, he said, we don't want to be doing that, he said. So he paid out of his own money for a holiday cruiser. And they smuggled loads and loads of rifles and ammunition in boxes into the hold of this cruiser, and then him and his dozen officers put on stripy jackets and straw boaters and marched on as if they were going on holiday, and off they went over to Africa. And they went to Mafeking, and Mafeking had a big harbour and a rail service there. So they thought, well, if I can control the station here and the harbours, then they can't bring in reinforcements without me stopping them, and I'll get an army together. And he travelled round Africa recruiting, and a lot of, as well as nearly 2,000 people willing to fight for him, he also recruited a small army of 12, 13-year-olds, and that's where and they were used as messengers and on errands and things like that, and that's where the Scout movement came from the stories of those boys that were there, and he got this army together. Now, while his officers are going around recruiting, one thing he did was he dressed up as with a pith helmet and a net, and he went out collecting butterflies. And what he did was he had a book, and he went out and he did drawings of butterflies in his book. And he was found by some of the Boers, and they said that they thought he was a spy. Let's have a look at your book. In his book, he had been round looking down off the mountains at all the Boer encampments, and he had done plans, drawings of all of their encampments, but he'd done them as the patterns in the butterflies' wings. So when they looked at the book, they didn't see maps of where all their soldiers were. They just saw butterflies, and they said, oh, you are a butterfly collector, up you go. And he went back to his camp, and they said, what we're going to do, you know, you were telling us that the Boer army is at least 7,000 strong, and we've got less than 2,000 of us, and they're all on the way here. What we're going to do? And he said, get these fence posts and go and bang them in the ground all the way around the town. So they went back to these fence posts all the way around the town, and then they went back to him, and he had a empty wooden reel, and he said, take this imaginary barbed wire and go and fasten it from one post to the next post. But remember, when he come back to climb over the barbed wire. So they went out and they fastened imaginary barbed wire to a post and unrolled it off the roll and fastened it to the next one, and went around like that. And the Boer generals up in the mountains with his binoculars looking out, they're putting barbed wire all the way around the town. And when he got it finished, they stepped over the imaginary barbed wire and went back and said, what are we going to do now? And he said, well, I found a load of clay, he said, and he shapes them into the size of like a sort of round flat, like an aspirin or something, but bigger. And he said, make loads of these, he said, and then go over, remember to climb over the imaginary barbed wire, dig a little hole, bury one of these, and very gently pat the soil over the top of it and go around and do that all the way around the town. And the Boer general was looking, he's watching them, and he says, they're putting landmines all the way around the town. And then they went back to him, and he said, well, what have we got in the way of weaponry? And they said, well, we've all got a rifle, and we've got lots of, lots of bullets. And he said, yeah, but anything bigger? And they had one light, and one gun like a Gatling gun, and one big, just the one big gun. And he polished up a biscuit tin. He put the light into the biscuit tin and put it on a stick. He said, right, every night, he said, two of you go over there with the Gatling gun, and two of you go over there with the light to the other side of the town, and just shine the light over there for a few seconds, then turn it off, and you just fire a few rounds of bullets. So they went over with the gun, And then they moved it round a little bit, and they moved the light round a bit, and they moved it round a bit more, and the board general's up at the top of the mountains and he's watching, and he says they've got Gatling guns and spotlights all the way around the town. And then Baden-Powell, he tripped up, and there was a bit of metal sticking up out of the ground, and he looked and he said, dig me that up. And they dug up an ancient cannon and cannonballs. So they had another form of weaponry, because he had plenty of dynamite, so he could actually use it. And engraved, cut into the metal of the side of the cannon, nobody knows why, but cut into the metal were the letters BP and Co. So he was destined to find that as well, wasn't he? So now they've got two guns, and they've got encampment, and there was a huge cellar. And it says when they start bombing, we need to get in that cellar, dig it out, and make it bigger. So the Boers start firing day in and day out, they're firing at them, and they're all down underground. A few died, I think maybe a dozen were killed in all, in total, but most of the time they're under the ground in these cellars, so they were safe. And the Boers were firing heavy artillery at them, night and all day, every single day, day in, day out, except for Sunday, and they had a ceasefire on a Sunday. And no firing was done on a Sunday, because they're all quite religious. And so Baden-Powell started arranging concert parties on a Sunday. And then he thought, I'll have a game of cricket as well. And they would play cricket every Sunday. And then there was a few fatalities, and Captain Phillips was one of the ones that died. And he had brought his wife with him and his servants. And he thought, Baden-Powell thought, it's not safe for this poor widow woman and her servant to be in this town that's getting bombarded. We need to get her out of here. And the Boers hadn't thought to get rid of the railway lines. There was still, and they had an engine. So they got all the soldiers with the rifles on the engine, and they got the two women in one of the carriages, and they went out of the town and through the Boer army, bang, 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 till they got out into the wilderness, stopped the train, got the two women to get off, and then it went all the way back, bang, 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 bang. And these two women were put out into the only count was one woman, because the other was a servant, so she didn't really count, but there was two of them, and they were put out into the wilderness. So instead of having to be shot at and hiding underground, they were being chased by hyenas and hippopotamuses. And after a couple of months of this, they decided it was actually safer to be in the town. So they smuggled themselves back into Mafeking, and then this lady started writing letters. They were kind of like, Captain James had his head blown off today, a bit of bally bad luck, but we had a wonderful game of cricket on Sunday. And she would have to write these letters, and supply ships would come, and they would have the letters sent back to London. Now, it took quite a while for the letters to go back, but she was writing them on a regular basis. So once the first one had arrived, every week or every few days there'd be a letter in the papers. And everybody in Britain knew all about the Siege of Mafeking from her letters, and she did full reports on everything that was going on. So it's why we remember it all, really, because it went on all of this time. And this went on for a very long time. And then his phone rings. And he answers the telephone. Hello? It's the Boer General. I've noticed when we have a ceasefire on a Sunday that you have a game of cricket. He said, yes, that's right. He said, well, I've just been wondering, he said, how about on Sunday, how about me and a few of the boys come over and give you a game of cricket? And he said, well, I'm sorry, no, I said, we can't do that. He said, because we're in the middle of an ongoing game of cricket, and we can't play you at cricket until we've finished our game. And the Boer General said, how long's your game been going on? He said, 200 days not out. Bang! It sounds made up, doesn't it? There you go, thank you. Time to dance, I think. Thank you.